Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Is XRP decoupling? Well, given what's been happening in crypto markets in recent days, and specifically how XRP has been outperforming Bitcoin recently, it's worth having the discussion. Take a look at this headline. XRP decouples from Nvidia as XRP rebounds 6% to $2.10, while Nvidia dips 8%. Here's a headline from Cointelegraph. Bitcoin decouples and stocks lose $3.5 trillion amid Trump tariff war and Fed warning of higher inflation. Now, I will absolutely acknowledge that what we have seen is unprecedented. To my knowledge, there has never been a similar moment in the entire history of the crypto asset class. Now, if there is one that I'm unaware of, maybe I'm just not thinking of, feel free to put it in the comment section below. But to my knowledge, this hasn't ever happened before. Then there's also this headline. Former Australian Stock Exchange CEO dismisses $10,000 XRP price predictions as unrealistic. And I just got to tell you, you love to see it. I mean, except for the Looney Tunes people who think that, XRP is ever going to be 5 digits. That's just completely absurd and ridiculous. I've covered that so many times. But, for people like me who want to live in reality, and hopefully that's all of you listening, this is nice. It's nice to see somebody somebody of repute, with a background that would lead you to believe he's got some knowledge about such things, to just push back against the nonsense. We need more of that, in my estimation. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, now, the idea of XRP decoupling from Bitcoin has been broadly discussed for years and years and years and years, since before I was in crypto, and I've been here since late 2017. And here's one of the more recent headlines. This is from January 2nd, 2025. XRP officially decouples from Bitcoin, top trader reacts. Okay, officially decouples. Well, if you want to call every single day where one's a little higher and one's a little bit lower, then it's decoupled a countless number of times throughout its existence. Like, that's silly, though. What we really mean is the market treating it different, and it's going to consistently treat it different from Bitcoin? Is it just going to more regularly flow on its own regardless of what the rest of the market is doing? And there is no evidence that's the case. There's no evidence, because look, anytime XRP's gone on like an actually notable run, something that's more than a flash in the pan, it's been when the entire crypto asset class was running. Even if you're talking about almost 2 years ago when XRP got legal clarity, yeah, it doubled in the span of almost 4 hours. But then it did ultimately get closer to where it was before that whole move happened. And you could argue maybe it was a little bit higher than it would have been otherwise, and that's fair, actually. But as to whether or not it's going to go on some sort of, notable run that could result in something resembling permanency without the rest of the market, I mean, it's never happened. So for me to change my mind about that, I'd need more than a single instance. People are ready to jump every time there's one example where XRP is behaving different than Bitcoin. You'll get people screaming this. I'm just like, don't you want more than one data point? Like, wouldn't you want a trend instead of a singular data point before reaching that conclusion? Because look, if that happens, I'd be happy. I would have no complaints about that. Same for the entire crypto asset class. If the crypto asset class gets treated in the way that, the Bitcoiners, portray that fake narrative, that, because you know what they say, of course, Bitcoin, it's it's gold 2.0. It's that whole thing. And so as a result, it gets treated different than, stocks. And it's just a fake narrative. But they're pretending like it's some sort of hedge against tumultuous times like gold is. No, actually, data says that's not true. Data says that when stocks crash, Bitcoin crashes, and so does all of crypto. And so it's just so disingenuous, these toxic Bitcoin maxims. They have no shame. But it is interesting because we did see yesterday, for the first time, like a dramatic crash that in any other moment in history would have caused XRP and the entire crypto asset class to tank, but it didn't. And so for that reason, it's worth having a discussion about this. Now, still, one data point does not make a trend. So I still maintain that. If it's the case that there's a decoupling, I'm going to need to see way more examples over a more prolonged period of time. If this is the start of that, super duper. There's no evidence that's the case right now. There's evidence of a data point. That's what we have right now. But still, check this out. Again, this headline, XRP decouples from NVIDIA as XRP rebounds 6% to $2.10, while NVIDIA dips 8%. And it is interesting to see this. XRP, one of the leading crypto assets, posted a notable gain today, while NVIDIA, the powerhouse of AI and chip technology, is nursing a 7.82% drop. The contrasting moves have sparked discussions on whether crypto assets and traditional stocks are decoupling. Dom Kwok, a former Goldman Sachs banking analyst, highlighted this trend in a tweet. He referred to XRP and NVIDIA as two of the biggest bellwethers in their respective markets. His observation suggests that while the broader stock market, particularly tech-related equities, faced downward pressure, crypto assets like XRP demonstrated resilience and upward momentum following the latest bloodbath. And you can see the post on the screen right there showing XRP up and NVIDIA down. And this is weird. So a couple days ago, so I guess that would have been what? Wednesday, because the tariff news, it technically broke Tuesday, but it was, I believe it was after the stock market closed. So the first full day of chaos would have been Wednesday. And crypto markets, including XRP, were down, but not by much. And so that caught my attention. I was like, this isn't much of a bleep. Like XRP dropped to $1.95 briefly, and then it went above $2. And then the next day, we got more news, and the world was terrified because of China's retaliatory tariff. They promised to implement 34% tariff, I believe is what it was, on April 10th is when that goes into effect, unless there's some negotiation made with behind the scenes, which I think there's a reasonable chance of happening. But setting that aside, so market spooked, stock market down substantially, somehow XRP up. I mean, when I checked that morning, I mentioned this in a video the other day, or I guess it was last night. XRP was up like close to 7% that morning. It was at like $2.10, and the rest of the market just bleeding out substantially. Or not. When I say the rest of the market, I worded that improperly. Crypto was fine. What I meant is the other market, the stock market, that was down. That was bleeding out substantially. You can look at the S&P 500, NASDAQ 100, Dow Jones Industrial, Russell 2000. Even, this is interesting too. And this also was surprising to me. Gold was down. Gold is what they flee to normally. And here, they were fleeing to crypto. This, to my knowledge, has never happened. Look, there have been days where the stock market goes down and crypto's up a little bit. But when you're talking about an event, like a cataclysmic event, that's the way that investors perceive it, there's never been a time where crypto plummets and then, or rather, the stock market plummets and crypto doesn't. But here we have that exact situation. And so the best theory that I've seen posited is that there's been so much bleeding out in crypto over the last couple months that the weak hands are already out. It's plausible. I'm not saying I'm completely convinced that fully explains this. There's got to be more to it. I would think there'd be more to it than that. I'm just not quite sure what. But part of the reason I say that is because if the people that invest in crypto, they're typically also invested in the stock market, right? And so if they're gonna pull out anything, usually be to some degree both. And so that still doesn't explain why we would have humans now treating the crypto asset class differently than the stock market. So if it really is as simple as the weekends, they've already been flushed out. I'll just say this. If enough time passes and we have more examples and more data points, and this is the outlier, then I'd be like, okay, maybe that was it. But on the flip side, if we have more data points, more global events occurring, and crypto continues to act different, I'd be like, oh, maybe people really have gotten to the point where they're treating it differently. But I got to tell you, I'm not convinced we're there yet, because this is one data point. So I need to see a trend before I could reasonably believe something like that. Now, the idea of it evolving to something like that, that's plausible. I could envision a world where, crypto, the asset class, including XRP, isn't always treated as a risk-on asset to the same degree. It could be treated more as, a hedge against tumultuous times, like gold normally is. But again, here, this isn't the only weird thing that's happening. This is part of the reason I'm saying that I'm not convinced of this decoupling, quote unquote, because even gold's not behaving in normal fashion. Gold is down. What? This is supposed to be good for gold, if anything, the tumultuous times, right? But it's not this time. This time is different. And maybe it's because it really is just as simple as or maybe it's a factor that it's just a rebalancing of, everything. Like the way that, it's global trade we're talking about. It's everything impacting everything else. and it's just chaos now, and it's the world trying to figure this out. And maybe that's the reason that we're just seeing some wacky stuff that under different circumstances we'd never see unfold. Like, to me, it seems more like that would be the case here. So you guys can tell me what you think. Here's a post from chart analyst Mikey Bull Crypto. He said, just in, $3.25 trillion wiped out from the U.S. stock market today. $5.4 billion was added to the crypto market. Decoupling has started, folks. Okay. Respectfully, I think that's premature. I think it's too soon to state so. I saw tons of posts like this. I'm just not convinced. Just like the same reason I'm not convinced when XRP runs and Bitcoin doesn't. No, I don't think that means that there's a decoupling. I think that it means we're in a bull market, and then XRP will pop off at random times. But when you zoom out on a chart going back to inception, you'll see that XRP, when it has notable runs like that, the ones that stick, it's because we're in a bull market. So I don't buy that either. Here's a post from chart analyst Jackus. He said, a reminder, this is not a crypto-driven drop, but an overall risk-on tariff trade war-driven drop. While all of that is unfolding, it seems that crypto has likely undergone most of its downside already and has been lately absorbing all of the selling really well. Once all of that settles, with most of the bad news behind us, good news in front of us, most extreme fear since bear market bottom in place and most sellers gone, the road for some meaningful upside should be next. As always, however, see the probability, set in validations, and take your chances as close to them as possible. Yeah, and so that last sentence would be for traders, of course. For hodlers, this doesn't matter. I just hold, well, no matter what happens, I just hodl. So for me, it doesn't matter. Excuse me. So as far as the worst being behind us for crypto holders, it looks like that now. We'll see if it starts, the market starts tanking again. But I still have a suspicion this is all going to get worked out, and then this could be, if I had to guess, I'd say we're probably seeing some outlier stuff that won't be replicated in the future. I just don't think that magically this exact moment humans have evolved their thinking on crypto and now it is to be decoupled. Like, I don't see sufficient evidence of that. If that's the case, maybe I'm wrong, fine, but I doubt it. I need to see more. To me, it makes sense that it's just, this is such a unique moment with the nature of trade wars. It's just messing with everything. And I think that gold kind of proves my argument here, right? It provides, fuel to my argument here that it's just a unique situation. Right, and then we have this. Former Australian Stock Exchange CEO dismisses $10,000 XRP price predictions as unrealistic. And that's a mistake, by the way. It's not Stock Exchange CEO. I Googled the guy and found him on this website. They're talking about Alex Carrico. He's a former ASX-listed company CEO. So he was the CEO of a company listed on the exchange. So Crypto Basic got that wrong. But anyway, still, the point that we need to drive home still stands. So here's what they were referencing. There's this post from All Things XRP. It's an account on X who wrote the following. Dear XRP influencers, we all want XRP to moon, but saying $100 next month or $10,000 overnight isn't helping anyone. It's hype without truth. And the community is starting to see through it. People are tired, they're frustrated, they're looking for leadership, not clickbait. I do my best to share grounded, fact-based insights that help the community grow. If we want crypto to go mainstream, we need higher standards, starting with us. Let's do better for XRP, for the community, for the future. So there's certain ones of us that have always had that standard of not pushing stupid-ass, ridiculous ideas, like 5-digit XRP. That's a stupid idea. That's a stupid as fuck idea. It just is. It always will be. And so there are people that are less informed that are suitable, suitable targets, I suppose you could say, to have follow you. Because they want it to be true. They don't know why it wouldn't make sense, and then they get offended when you challenge it because they feel things about it. Like that's what happens. So there's a certain element within the XRP community that is primed to believe that, wants to believe it, will believe it, and then will be mad at anybody that says no, that's not the case. So there are some influencers that are clearly grifters. There are also some influencers that genuinely are not intelligent enough to understand that this is a bad idea. It's both of them, frankly, here. So, I don't think that element's going to go away, but I think it's always worth pushing back against bad ideas, of course. And if somebody thinks that our side, the more rational side, who just wants to live in reality, if they think that we're wrong, they keep pushing back against us, and we'll push back against your ideas. That's fine. I mean, that's frankly how it should be. But there's always been a strong element of people within the community that are very fact-based and just want to believe whatever is true. And I've always argued that reality is more than sufficient to be ridiculously excited about XRP and the XRP ecosystem. We don't need this fantasy land crap about $10,000 XRP. And fine, triple-digit XRP may come at some point, but it's not happening in this cycle. If it does, it could be a decade or two from now, for all I know. I'm not even gonna predict that. I'm telling you straight up, I don't know. I'm just acknowledging, fine, that's possible. That's about as far as I'm willing to go. But no, it's not happening tomorrow. And the people that push that stuff, I just kind of roll my eyes. And some of them actually believe it. And what can I say? I mean, if they're operating in good faith, they're allowed to share their opinions. But I think that they should, maybe be interested in looking at the reasons that people like myself have articulated. For instance, the fact that it's very obvious there's not enough money on the entire damn planet to get the price of XRP bid up to tens of thousands of dollars. You'd be talking about a market cap large for some of these predictions, literally larger than all stocks in existence. And so and obviously the market cap it's not a representation of how much money flows in. And I understand that, because that's what they always come back with. Like, yeah, I knew that in 2017, dude. That's not what I'm arguing. I'm saying there's not enough money to bid the price up to that level. There just isn't. It's not going to happen. And I've made that case. So I'm not going to go more in depth in this video. But anyway, it's just nice to see somebody else pushing back against this. And so Alex Krakow, he agreed, and he said, 1000% agree. I've been a CEO of an Australian stock market company, and it's sad to see incoming XRP buyers been sold the story of $1,000 to $10,000, and it's parabolic and going to happen tomorrow or next week. The screens daily show the truth, $2 to $2.50 at the moment, and in time will improve with institutional buying and adoption in the marketplace. Nobody can predict accurately, as it's not a stock market, but an erratic crypto market. Fortunately, with legislation, lots of others can be sanctioned for having no liquidity or backing. So the general idea is obviously correct. And so what you'll keep finding is the people who are obviously the adults in the room, and you can tell by their backgrounds and the way that they carry themselves and the way that they speak, it's going to be different than the hypey folks. It always is. It always is. And a lot of the hypey folks are also the same ones that are guilty of being wacky conspiracy theory nut jobs. With the, like XRP was secretly handed out to nations the world over, and we just don't know it, and it's secretly allocated for all these other countries. Remember that one? Or remember XRP secretly backed by gold? Remember that one? Or there's a secret ledger there's a private ledger for XRP, and the price is secretly way higher. Remember that one? Or what about the quantum financial system is going to take over, and XRP's at the core of it, and then Swift's going to cease to exist in, what was it, August of 2018 or whenever the hell it was? Remember that prediction? Remember that? And then some of the biggest XRP influencers out there were pushing that crap. I remember all this stuff. Like, those people need to stop doing those stupid things. But it's always the same people that are pushing this crap. But the good news is I think that most people are more rational, and they're just not going to fall for this. I mean, if everybody thought that it made sense for XRP to go to $10,000, then nobody would even listen to me. So I'm more optimistic. I do think it's most people that get this, but it still bothers me. The people who are disingenuous and the grifters out there, those people really, really grind my gears, because they're just misleading people, and they know they're doing it. Now, if it's people that are just not intelligent enough to understand something, okay, that's a little different. Then you're innocent, at least. You're just saying something stupid. But either way, we should push back against this stuff. So anyway, all that to say, I found this to be refreshing, because that's not happening. Like, that's clear. Now, XRP is going to make a ton of people in our community filthy rich, but those figures ain't happening, folks. Ain't happening. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.